Casey, let's jump into today's episode. It's a special episode because we're not talking about any one particular story.
No, this is something that you and I have had similar experience with, which is we both came later in life to a diagnosis that gave a lot of context to a billion other stories that came before it in our lives.
Maybe we should have started the whole series with this because I feel like it's kind of a bombshell that
Yeah, well, yeah, I was gonna say probably anyone who knows me won't be surprised, but but but
same.
it is one that can give a lot more context slash inform a lot of the other outdated mental models and or just constructed emotions that we had to reconstruct later on in life.
Yes, it's true. So we had the idea that our backgrounds, the reason why they're blurred now, but we're going to change them. We're going to reveal, we had to pick pictures of what it is like in your mind. Like what if we had a
Oh,
visual representation of
it's
what
blank, baby. I'm just kidding. I'm sorry. Nothing.
nothing.
Crickets. I found out I'm boring. I'm just and everybody knew. Anyway, sorry,
You
what?
know what? It's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you
Yeah,
want to go
reveal
first?
time.
You want to be the grand reveal?
The
I feel like
gender
we
reveal.
should, yeah. Oh my
Okay,
gosh, can I pause
get
really
ready to
quickly?
accidentally light a forest on fire. I'm about to reveal something.
Well, we'll call this our brain reveal.
This is my brain reveal. You
Okay,
ready?
drum roll.
Brrr. Did that did it work? No.
No.
Ta-da!
Wow! I love this movie.
I love it too, but also I just love that. Well, first of all, shout out to one of my very first crushes, Ki Kwan.
Oh,
I loved Temple of Doom, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, and he was short round. And then Goonies, those were like two movies I watched a ton as a kid, and I was like in love with him slash wanted to be him because he was short round and he was Data. And so when this movie came out and I got to see him being like the charming adult he has become, it made me really happy. But also how relatable. This is kind of what it feels like inside my brain. It's like my brain it has everything everywhere all at once inside of it because I have ADHD combined type, which means I had a lot of symptoms that were both inattentive and hyperactive. It's actually the most common type of ADHD people have. And I am one of the hundreds or thousands, I don't know the statistics off the top of my head, of adult women who have been diagnosed with it who did not get diagnosed as a child.
I love this. I also love how it's like framing your head
I
too.
know I kind of feel like I'm a saint now, like,
It was
woo!
amazing.
And also, Lux by Rosalia was my favorite album of the year, and it pulled a lot of themes of female sainthood. So,
This is amazing. It was meant to be.
must have, yes.
It
Yes.
was meant to be. I love it.
Yes.
Okay, my brain reveal. Here
Hmm.
we F1.
You got a race car brain, huh?
I got a race car brain where every single race car is a thought or something on my to-do list.
Hmm.
And uh, the leader changes sometimes every minute, sometimes every hour, sometimes every day.
Hmm.
And sometimes there are pretty gnarly wrecks of all the different thoughts and priorities. But it,
Pileups,
yeah,
it changes. Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, just think of an F1 track, and that is my mind.
I get it. Dr. Russell Barkley, he has a really great analogy, which is a lot of times people with ADHD have a race car brain with bicycle brakes.
Yeah,
Lamborghini brain with bicycle brakes. So you think and process information and pull information constantly. But what's really hard is that inhibitory control to slow down and be able to pivot and make changes, which is the regulation issue that is the core of ADHD.
yeah, that is me. And honestly, like reading one of his books, Taking Charge of Adulthood ADHD, which you introduced me to him. but
Mhm.
just listening to his books and everything else, that was really like I got the diagnosis and I had family and friends basically saying like you should go get this checked, like you probably have it. You being one of them, Casey, which I'm so grateful for. But yeah, listening to his book, like after hearing all my friends and family and the psychologist say you've got ADHD, like
You've got
reading his
ADHD.
yeah,
Yeah.
reading his book though, that was like, oh, I actually got it.
Yeah. So again, if you are someone who has ADHD or know someone who does, which probably you are because it's like 5 to 6% of the population has it. Russell Barkley is a brilliant man. He has been researching ADHD for his whole career, even before it became as buzzy and cool as it has been lately in social media. Um, so he has a lot of really great information on it, and he explains really well what is happening or kind of how your brain is working when you have ADHD. And one of the things I really appreciate is that he is someone who has pointed out that ADHD is what we call it, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, but it's really not a great name to capture really the root of it, which is an executive functioning developmental disorder. EFDD is sometimes how it's called, or even just if you call it like an attention dysregulation disorder. Because at the heart of it is you're having a hard time, your brain has a lot of jobs, and then it has to, besides all the jobs it's doing, one of the things it also does is it tries to regulate what it's paying attention to, or what it's focusing on, or what action it's taking. And when it has a hard time regulating that, it shows up in an inability to perform a lot of like the executive functions of your brain, which are things including self-regulation, emotional regulation, planning, organizing, self-monitoring, time management, um, as well as whatever you're paying attention to, initiating tasks, etc.
Mhm.
So those are executive functions. And when you have ADHD, your brain just has a really hard time regulating and accessing and implementing executive functions. And part of why that is because your brain has a hard time. It's like usually in a typical brain and a neurotypical brain, your brain is constantly sensing or picking up information from its environment. And then it starts to get good at filtering out the information that's not super relevant or important to whatever's happening. But when you have ADHD, your brain again has a hard time with regulation. So it's just constantly aware of everything that's happening. And some things it might be more aware of just depending on where your sensory regulation thresholds are or your sensory thresholds are. And so because it's constantly aware of everything and then has a hard time regulating where its attention is going, you have attention for days. It's not that you're lacking attention. You have attention for days. It's just that you're having a hard time focusing your attention maybe where it needs to go. And you're also aware of things that are pulling your attention elsewhere that other people are able to block out, so that they can attend to whatever task is at hand. And so that's why for me, I feel like my brain on some level is aware of everything everywhere all at once. I also, have we've talked about before, have anxiety, which if you have ADHD, you usually have some sort of level of anxiety, but some people only have anxiety as it relates to ADHD. And then some people have anxiety on top of it. And so I have generalized anxiety disorder along with my ADHD. The anxiety is what everyone picked up on first. And I'm very good at worrying about everything. But part of why I'm so good at worrying about everything is because my brain is is thinking about everything everywhere all at once. And so, yeah, it gets kind of noisy in my head. And it has been, but it's one of those things that like all you know in your life is what your life is. And
Mhm.
especially when you're a kid, you're like, well, this is just life, you know? Like it's hard for me to breathe when I run. That's just life. You know what I mean? Or like, everyone else is figuring this out, so I'm just gonna pretend like I know what I'm doing too, even though I really don't know what's going on right now, and or this is boring or not interesting to me
Yeah.
because it's just life. Or like,
I'm
all
really
families
bad
are
at
pagan,
math.
right? Yeah, I'm really bad at math because that's just sometimes people are just bad at math, right? You know?
Yeah.
And so like your life is just whatever it is, and it's not until you start to become like more aware of the rest of the world and the all the like variations in the world that exist that you can even start to like be aware of different conditions such as ADHD or anxiety or anything else, or even just be aware that, like, hey, maybe this is not the best mental model I have right now, or I'm not aware of this metabolic condition that's affecting me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, like, all I knew all my whole life was like, well, this is just like how my brain is. And but certainly everyone's brain is like this, right? And
Yeah.
it's only been as I've gotten older and as I've like expanded the number of people I've talked to and met and known that I'm like, oh, okay, so not everyone's brain is like this. And you
Yeah.
do get like variations of information like this. I don't know what your experience was. Well, you kind of alluded to it before, but like you get feedback from the way you're interacting with people
Oh,
about
yeah.
like, how they're perceiving you. And so that's where you start to maybe adjust or adapt. Or sometimes, the term is like masking for like when you realize, oh, people think this is weird or this is too much. So I'm going to just adjust this part of myself. Um,
Do you
and
remember your first masking experience? I remember mine. Do you remember yours?
no, but tell me yours and then I might think of one.
Yeah, so my mom definitely has ADHD. I think my dad has ADHD. The more he's in his 70s, so he's like really just not interested in getting a diagnosis. Either is my mom, because we're like, we live this long without it. Anyway, um, so like we grew up, like my parents were always really good at making sure that we knew we had a voice and nurturing our creativity. My mom was a Montessori school teacher, like grade school teacher. So we always were like really active and had a lot of like tools to create things and express ourselves. And anyway, I go to preschool. I'm so excited for preschool because this is the first time that like I'm going to be around all my peers, and my mom was telling me about preschool and like all I love learning. And I remember my first day of preschool just showing up like 100% authentically Chelsea, which is really scatterbrained, lots of energy, like just general enthusiasm for life, and just started talking to people. And they didn't say anything, but my peers and my teacher just gave me a look like, huh? I
Mhm.
was like, oh, I'm different. So let me rein this in. Let me like look and see how other people are acting and how I need to act in order to like fall in line and not get those looks like something's weird.
Mhm.
So I just thought, well, I just was a bubbly kid, but then now after getting like the ADHD diagnosis, I'm like, oh, like my brain literally is, I was surrounded by a lot of probably neurotypical people.
Mhm.
And I was just acting different than what they were used to.
Yeah. I don't, well, so I guess like I remember kind of like masking, or I don't remember. Okay, let me start over. I know like from a very early age I was doing it, but I don't know how much of it, I don't think any of it was really consciously driven by like ADHD as much as I was like
Mm,
trying to fit in for other reasons or kind of like hide
okay.
other parts that I was worried about that
Yeah.
other people judging. But yeah, from a very early age, I figured that out too. And so a lot of it is like just kind of, yeah, being a chameleon your whole life of like, okay, let me see, I'm going to test the waters.
Yeah.
Let me read the vibe here. Okay, cool. So this is how we act here. This is how I'm going to act to fit in. And so there was a lot of that, a lot of like, oh, I'm glad you like me. I was pretty much just trying to be you, but like
Yeah.
in my
Oh,
body.
100%.
So I did that a lot, especially through high school. I moved around a lot. Like my family moved around a lot when we were kids. I went to 5 different elementary schools. Um, and so, and like then 2 different middle schools, but only one high school. So, like, by the time we got to high school, we were just in one place. But so, like, I moved around a lot. And so, I had lots of opportunities to be at new schools and meet new kids. And
Mhm.
so, also, I was just like a highly adaptable person. But I think I always just saw it more as like, okay, cool. This is just me fitting in
Mhm.
without really consciously realizing, like, no, this is you just trying to like fit in by changing who you are to be
Yeah.
like I just figured like, oh, well, this is what fitting in is, right? It's just being who
Yeah.
other people want you to be, right?
Yeah.
And so even like I don't think I had a good enough concept of like who I was to recognize that that's what I was doing.
Mhm.
Um, as much as like maybe it sounds like you had a little bit more awareness of who you were and how you had to like adjust yourself. To me, it was more just like, yeah, this is how you fit in. This is how you make friends. You just
Mm,
turn into the person that you need to be for this person, and then
yeah,
that's how you become friends with them.
yeah.
So, I mean, which makes me sound sort of like a psychopath, but I'm,
I honestly, I did the same thing. Like
yeah.
even until my 20s. Like it wasn't until I actually moved to Salt Lake when I was 26, because I had a falling out with like my best friend at the time, like two really good friends at the time, to where it really just kind of like jolted me of like, wow, I have no idea who I am. I just am a chameleon. Like I would prioritize everyone else's needs or everyone else's interests, but I did it in a really fun way, like because I love like finding new adventures and like going to different concerts or finding like quirky art things or anything like that. And I would just attract people who had similar interests like that, but I would prioritize what they wanted to do, but still was able to have fun memories and stuff. So yeah, I mean, I probably sound like a psychopath too, of like, but
Well,
literally that's just how I thought you connected with people.
well, guess what? Then we are psychopaths together. Because everything you said, I was like, yeah, because that's how you made friends, Chelsea. Like that's
Yes.
what you do. And it
Yeah.
really wasn't until I started going to therapy in my 20s that I was like, oh, wait, who am I? And
Yeah.
that's part of why it's scary because it was like I'm so used to just being who I think other people want me to be or need me to be that I'm not even sure what I'm going to find. And what if I find like a really terrible person?
Yeah.
That's what I find
Yeah.
out I am.
Yeah.
And it turns out I'm actually just pretty average and boring.
Same.
But like I truly didn't know. And then like I'm like, I'm like anyone. I've got some things that are like really weird or like peculiar about me, and then other things that you're just like, okay, well, if that's what you call a good time, go. And so, but yeah, like so that was kind of my experience growing up with it. I definitely would have moments where I was like too much and I could feel like I was too much to
Yeah, same.
and like try to tamp that down. But then I always just turned it into like a ha ha ha, wasn't that so silly how goofy I was being on purpose?
Yeah.
Like not really realizing like actually I just was so into it I didn't even recognize
Yeah.
maybe how much I was being um
Yeah.
at the time. So yeah, there was just a lot of that growing up. Part of it too was I like people would always be like, "You're so smart," and like people kept talking about how smart I was. So I really felt like I had to put on this like that must be who I am because people keep
Yeah.
so then I had to like
Yeah.
act like I was so intellectual and everything. And yeah, I'm a huge nerd and I do like learning, but I'm not like a genius. I'm not in Mensa. When I take tests, I'm like average slash high average. If like
Yeah.
if I'm in like in a any sort of remarkable zone, it's like because I'm high average in something, but then you like make me do a math test and it's like, oh.
I know. Did
Like
did you ever take the gifted and talented test?
no, because that's the thing. I remember you said you got flagged for that, and I was the little like I could feel little me who was constantly thought I had to be smart, being like, I guess I really wasn't smart. Like little child me inside was like, I guess I wasn't
Oh,
smart because I never got tapped for gifted and talented.
I
But
got
no, I
tapped
did.
for it. I mean, I told you this before. I mean, I feel like you should have taken the test too. It probably would have been the same results as me though. I mean, I purposely flunked it because I saw, I, I still don't know if this is like an ADHD thing, but just being like hyper aware of everything, and being hyper aware of like people's perceptions or other people's experiences and learning from other people's experiences. Like I definitely don't feel like I have to experience everything to realize like that experience would be for me or not for me. Um,
Mhm.
so when I saw my gifted and talented friends and siblings, um, the amount of homework that they had to do, the challenge that I was like, fuck.
So when you even just saying that was me, I was like, no, I'm out. Never mind. I don't want to
Yeah.
be.
And
I'm
then
gifted and
I
talented. Yeah.
I think the kicker was though, because all of the test scores were just like slightly below, but my math score was like really below. Because I math just is not great. I've never been really great at math. I mean, don't get me wrong, I was doing like pre-calc and all that other stuff, but it always just took me longer to like actually yeah, do the work. But yeah, math, I'm right there with you.
Yeah, so I no, like gifted and talented. I was like, oh, well here's an example of uh okay, here's an example. Of this was my brush with greatness. I was in kindergarten and my teacher would give us books to take home because we're practicing reading and I had started reading probably like around what age 4 is like so I was like a little bit earlier to read
Yeah,
than some
that's
other kids.
interesting.
Well, but like it wasn't, I'm not, again, I'm not a savant or anything. I just clearly when you hear me talk, it's like, oh, this girl in words, right? And so like even just as a young kid, I think I thought language was fascinating. I thought words were
Yes.
fascinating. So I was into reading and people would read to me and I started reading, but like just like early reading.
Yeah,
I wasn't Matilda. I wasn't reading like novels. I was just
yeah.
doing early reading. And so in kindergarten, she was giving us like these books, like just like but she would give us the Dick and Jane books, like, see, Dick,
Mm,
run, Dick, run, and all those, like, and they were so boring. But she'd give us these books,
yeah.
and then we're supposed to read them and then bring them back and tell her what we read and tell her what the story was about. And that's kind of how she would check on like our reading comprehension and how we were doing, so that that way too, like any of the kids who were still struggling with any of the reading, they could go ahead and try to get into a reading program.
Okay.
Mom got a phone call from the principal of this school and he was like, "Hey, is this Casey's mom? I really want to talk to her. I want to talk to you about Casey's reading." And my mom was like, "She's been reading for a while. This is where I'm going to find out she's a genius and she's so smart and they want to make her skip a grade and all that kind of stuff." And so my mom's like, "Yeah." And then he's like, "Yeah, so Casey can't read and we want to put her in a remedial class." And my mom's like,
What?
"Wait, what?" And he's like, "Yeah, so we have concerns that Casey can't read." And the reason why is because my teacher would give me these really boring books to read. And I read one and I was like, this is stupid. I'm out. And so I didn't think the stories were interesting. And so instead, I would like read the story, but then I'd be like, oh, this one's kind of boring. And then I would just make up my own story. So, like, after reading the first one, I was like, well, that story was boring. I'll just make up a story that's better. And so I would retell her a story that I thought was more interesting,
I
the
love
one that
that.
I actually read. Which to her was like, well, this girl clearly didn't read the story because that is not what this story is about. And that turned into, I did that enough that the principal had to call my mom and was like, Casey can't read. We're going to put her in a special class so that she can learn how to read. And my mom had to be like, no, she can read. She reads a lot. Like I was just reading like a lot of like early books, like Dr. Seuss kind of books. And
Yeah,
she was just like, and so that was what they finally figured out is I just didn't like the books that I was given to read.
yeah.
That's why I couldn't read is because I wasn't actually recapping the actual story. So that's like my one brush with like giftedness. It was for remediation, because again, my brain was like, this is boring. I'm not into this. I need something more interesting. If you want me to participate, I
Yeah,
will make it interesting myself.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
I feel like, you know what? I feel like we are gifted, just not the standard gifted, but we're also like very average too, you know?
Well, that's why what I mean. Like, I feel like I don't know. I know I've had some like even relatives of mine who like really, and I get why people do this because I used to do this too. Like, you want to feel special in some way, and especially that
Yeah.
like there is something about you that doesn't quite fit in the world at large. You grasp for anything that like makes you special, and so then you're just like, well, who cares if I fit in or not? Because I am better than everyone or
Right.
whatever, you know what I mean? And I'm
So,
not saying that that's what you're doing. I'm just saying that that's how people have approached it in like
yeah,
relations of mine. And I'm like, or like you can also like not just be like completely average from an academic standpoint, but still be worthy of love, even if
yeah,
not the world at large is accepting you. And that's kind of where I've landed. So it's like, I'm not saying I'm not intelligent, but I also am just fully aware that like I feel like too when I frame things through the lens of ADHD, I if something is interesting to me, I will like want to learn
yeah,
about it and I will remember
yeah.
it. When things are not interesting to me, they don't stick. And so like and there will even be like there's even studies that show like test scores of kids with ADHD like overall will often come out average, but when you look at particular tests, it looks more like this, like all over the place,
Oh
versus
yeah.
like, most kids with average intelligence are more of a wave.
Mm.
And that's because if something's not interesting to you, you just might not like you might lose interest in the task and you
Yeah,
might not perform as well over time.
yeah,
And it's like, yeah, like I feel like I'm capable. I feel like, I know about the world and I'm not intelligent, but I'm also like fully aware of how average I mostly am,
yeah,
almost every single thing. And like there are definitely certain things that like get me way more excited. Obviously, I'm more of a language expert than you are, and not because I'm anything special, but because I went to grad school for it and
yeah,
I do it for a living. So I know a whole lot more about the development of communication than you do.
yeah,
But I should, just because that is what I spend more time with,
yeah,
not because I'm like a savant that just knew a lot about language. And
yeah,
so that's kind of like where I bristle when people get a little too like, I don't know, like, especially with my relations, where after a while I realized, like, oh, guys, I wish that we could identify and focus that the real reason here or the real root of this issue is like low self-esteem and not a lack of intelligence. And what we really should focus more on is our low self-esteem and how we're trying to gain our self-worth through other people's validations of us and our
yeah.
performance ability versus like what our performance ability actually is and if it's good.
I love that. I think that's a conversation that I think we need to have more especially because like once I started like unpacking everything like in my 20s, like once I realized like, oh, I am a chameleon, then I started to unpack like why I was so much of a chameleon, and it all like came back to like low self-worth. Like that's literally what it was. Of like, can I pedestal myself? Can I basically have feel like people are indebted to me, or like all this other like kind of mental mind games that are pretty common for people with low self-worth. But
And
just
also, low self-worth is very common in ADHD.
yeah,
But anyway, keep
yeah,
going.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So like just once we're able to call it for what it is, instead of trying like you were saying, like instead of masking it or trying to like hype yourself up because of societal norms or expectations, or trying to help you feel better, I feel like you're able to actually get to the root of it. I mean, that's a
Yeah.
lot of like what we started this podcast too, is like, can
Yeah.
we actually label things and call things what they are, and can we demonstrate and show how once we got the information, how our outlook changed, how our mental models changed, how our perspective changed, not only from like us, but
Sorry, I
you're
said you.
good. No,
You're
it's
fine.
okay. Are your dogs? Do you need to go check on them?
No, we're good. I just
Okay.
go ahead.
No.
Speaking of this, I just got really preoccupied that I heard the mail truck and I didn't want to miss the package, but it's like if I miss the package, it's not a big deal. Anyway, I'm so sorry. I know it
No,
was rude and I
no,
interrupted you, but you were talking
no.
about really lovely things. Let's go back.
No, I think that was it. Like that was it of like, let's just call things for what they are. Because once I mean, it starts like true freedom or true understanding comes from like just seeing things as they are, instead of like trying to build yourself up in like superficial ways or
Well, and especially when it's like if you're having to gain your value from like, I don't know, dehumanizing or subjugating other people, like,
yeah, I
not
know.
good.
I feel like there's so much of that now. It's just like very pervasive, especially in the US. And it's so sad. Like some of it is like so blatant, but I feel like there's also a lot of like very subtle ways that it comes into play. Like I feel like a lot of the ways that I used to do it were like very subtle, or I thought were very subtle. I mean, they may have been super blatant to other people too. But yeah.
Right. Well, even like when we think about, like when I think about, because, you and I were both religious, and even when I think about how whatever sort of community you're involved in, you find ways, if you don't have like a very good feeling about yourself as a person, the
Mhm.
ways that you do try to find value and worth in yourself show up in like usually you trying to make yourself better than someone else. And like, so it's so silly because even when you think about it, like I was learning about Jesus and how he loved everyone. And then sometimes I would try to like out Christ like other people.
Well, I mean, that's also just the type of religion we grew up in, you know?
And also, like, even just thinking of how silly that is, where it's like trying to be more Christ-like than someone else is inherently not Christ-like.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just like trying to like out religious someone is just so silly. And it was
Yeah.
like in school, it was like trying to be like, no, but I am so smart. When honestly, a lot of times, like, and I remember again, like I could verbalize some of these things as a kid. I could verbalize to other people that when I have a project due, I have to wait until the last minute because I need
Mhm.
that adrenaline rush to finish it and to get it done because I couldn't figure out how to get it going otherwise. And I needed to like have all of these like neurochemicals getting the processes going because my brain just didn't have them otherwise. And
Yeah.
so like I heard someone say one time it was like that you, like that's kind of like you're just having to hijack your brain um by creating the circumstance for this like neurochemical reaction to happen because it just doesn't happen on its own the way it does for other people. So I was
Yeah.
fully aware of that. I was also fully aware of the fact that the reason I tried to learn things as quickly as I did is because I didn't want to study. The
Yeah.
thought of all the steps it took for studying, or was like, I have to go get a book and sit there and look at it again.
Yeah.
Like if I can just
Yeah.
remember this information right when you tell me, then I don't have to do all that work later. And
Yeah.
so it was like more efficient for me just to try to learn it as you were telling it to me. So I wouldn't have to like try to figure it out later because I was like, I don't want to do it later. I barely want to do
Yeah.
it now. So like, I can just so part of like it was just me willing my brain to like learn as much as I could right then, just because I was like, I'm not gonna want to do this later. And so for
Yeah.
efficiency's sake, if I can just sponge up as much information right now then I don't have to do it later. And then the sad thing is that morphed into because I'm a smart person and I'm so smart and I don't have to study. And then if I fail, oh well, I didn't study. So it was just also like where procrastination and
Yeah.
wanting to put in effort became ways of both like the procrastination and all that were both ways that I was managing ADHD, but also trying to manage like my self-worth with outcomes of like, oh well, I didn't try that hard when it really I was just scared of trying and failing, you know?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But like I'm curious, how does it show like now that you because you're the most recently diagnosed out of the two of us, now that since your diagnosis, like how has it helped you maybe recontextualize things in your life that you've experienced in the past or like how it's helped you kind of contextualize and reframe, where you're at now?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing that it helped with is just help me realize like what are the priorities that I need in a routine to help me show up every day to like actually kick my executive functioning on. And just realizing too that I think one of the reasons why I appreciated spending so much time working for someone else is because there was some sort of accountability and there were hard deadlines and I couldn't get out of doing the work. So I feel like a lot of, and this is probably one of the reasons why like I got the diagnosis when I did, was because like going on the path of entrepreneurship, like the only person I have to be accountable to is myself. And um I mean, my husband, I mean, there's like some aspects of being accountable to my husband and to my landlord and to like the bills we have to pay. But other than that, like we don't live a lavish lifestyle. Like we could get by on not a ton of money, and be fine. And so I just kept coming up against like myself, like that was the biggest thing in my way. So it's just helped me realize like what are the things like my routines that I need in order to feel like balanced and like I can show up and I can do the work that I want to do and to accomplish the goals that I want to accomplish without having that external um pressure of someone else and someone else to be accountable to. So that has been like a game changer for me to realize like how can I structure my days? How can I structure my weeks? How can I structure my goal setting? And even when like the delaying the gratification too, of like I'm not gonna get that instant dopamine hit, but how can I structure my day to where I get natural like dopamine hits and I can get the little jolts of like validation that I want.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Um, I'm glad that you got that because it is something that just affects the way that your brain is able to show up to whatever you're doing. it does become like I don't know, for any diagnosis, especially any of the diagnoses that are like in the DSM-5, one
Mhm.
of the criteria is to what extent is it affecting your life. And
Mhm.
like for your dad, he's 70 and he's also had a lot of years of other people helping him with executive functioning. So even if his isn't great himself, he doesn't probably feel as much need to get any sort of diagnosis at this point because it might not be impacting him as much as it was before
Mhm.
or would might otherwise be. That's the same in my family. My mom was diagnosed, and my dad could definitely get the diagnosis, but he doesn't want to get diagnosed either just because he's like, well, why? Like, it's just like, it's not he doesn't see the value in it. And it's not to say like, just like you should get diagnosed for the thrill of it. The reason it's like, the reason I finally realized I should go talk to someone about this is because, and I've told you this story before, Chelsea, but like as soon as I started, I was aware of ADHD and I'd worked with kids before I had gone to grad school with ADHD, but they were the kids that like anyone would have recognized with ADHD because in the like 90s and early 2000s, ADHD was just the kid who can't sit still
Yeah.
and is like crazy impulsive and stuff like that. Usually the kid who flipped his eyelids inside out in class did some sort of like weird thing like that. You know what I mean? And so I was like, okay, well, that's what ADHD is. It's not like I couldn't appreciate like the nuances of it or the spectrum of it. And but like as soon as I finished grad school and I learned a lot more about like executive functions and how they impact our cognitive development and our brains. And then more than anything, once I started working with kids, and then kids would come in who had these diagnoses, and I was like, wait, this is a kid with ADHD? Well, then I definitely have it. And everyone in my family has this because I was actually able, because like the kids would come in and I'm like, that's exactly what I was like as a kid. And
Yeah.
then it started to make sense. But even then, it was like I still took a few years because part of it was, and I've told you about it too. Um, there's like been imposter syndrome with ADHD for me, but
Yeah.
especially because it's become more of like a cultural like thing, and that's like the two-edged sword about content creation and social media, especially around diagnoses. I don't feel like diagnoses should become your whole identity or personality. I feel like it is data, and that's something I appreciate about you is that you appreciate that like learning this stuff about you is just because it's giving you like data about how you work and so that you can help yourself out the most.
Yeah.
And so I kind of like bristled at the idea of it because I know that for some people, like I just didn't want it to be like a thing where I was like, I'm just doing it to be like a quirky influencer and I'm doing it for clout and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because for a lot of people, it's not like a fun thing. For most of
No.
the time, it's not a fun thing. It's
No.
not this like cute little adorable part of myself. It's a very
Yeah.
frustrating and maddening pattern of how I'm like, I barely had that in my hand. Why have I already lost it? Kind of moments. Or
Yeah.
like, I really would love to be on time. I don't know why I can't ever seem to get on time. Or I know what I want to do, but I can't seem to make it happen kind of moments.
Yeah. Or I just need
Um,
to feed the damn dogs, but I've
yeah.
already unloaded the dishwasher and started a load of laundry and all of that before just putting the damn dog food in the bowl.
Yeah. Yeah, where you're like, no, but there's this whole chain that has to happen in order for it to be the most efficient and blah blah blah. And it's like, or
Yes.
just feed the dogs.
Yes.
I like, or like, one of my biggest Goliaths my whole entire life that I have to constantly make myself fight is taking a shower.
Oh,
And
me
as a
too.
child, I
Me
hated bathing
too.
unless I was like really into wanting to just sit in the water for a long time.
Yeah.
So if I wanted to play in the water, I would bathe. But if I didn't want to, then I was like, oh, so many steps, so much work, so much effort. And
And
I
is it
just
a full body shower? Like, are you shaving too, or are you just like doing a quick thing? Like, it's
exactly
a thing. It's a thing
it's
for me
it's a
too.
whole thing, and it's like I always feel better, and it's not, and I'm never in the shower like, oh, this is so hard and so much work, because thankfully my body is otherwise able to do all of that.
Yeah.
It's just more like the thought of how many steps it's going to be and how
Yeah.
much mental effort it is to think through all those steps, that I'm just like, oh my goodness, it's just so much work. So there's like plenty of ways that it's not like this cute little charming quirky thing where it's like, girl, you stink, go shower. Versus like, hee hee, isn't it adorable how I just keep forgetting things and I'm just so random and stuff like that. And so there was definitely like imposter syndrome where I was like, oh, I don't want it just to be like anything that I'm doing like as a bandwagony thing or like
Yeah,
I don't want it just to be doing it because it's like what's cool right now or whatever.
yeah,
Um, but it just because I just got to a point where it's, I'm not, I don't have a partner. And so it's just me. I'm single. I live alone. I enjoy my life. But I definitely was just like, oh shit, I have to take care of
mhm,
everything. And it just got so, like, just the amount of work and the exhaustion I constantly felt all the time, just because of how much effort just doing anything takes sometimes was really hard and just got to a point where I was like, wow, I really, and I was just overwhelmed and dysregulated all the time and I was burning out constantly. And it was just so hard that I was like, okay, I really should talk to someone. Because there was also even that like protection against failure piece of me. I didn't want to be a bandwagoner and go try to get it because it was like the cool diagnosis on social media at the time. But then
yeah.
there was also part of me that was like, what if I go and they tell me I don't have it? And then I have to pay that copay.
Hey,
Ah. And so, and then because like then again, when I see how much things cost, all I see is work that I have to do because that's how you
yeah,
get my money. I have to trade my time and skills for money. And so
yeah.
when I'm like, and if I have to pay that much money and then it's nothing, I'm
I
gonna be so
know.
angry about that. But it just finally got to a point where I was like, okay, it's just too hard and it's just too much. And I had told my family when I had first started my career, I was like, hey, I think everyone in our family has ADHD. And then my nephews had already been getting diagnosed with it. And then it was my sister, one of my sisters, she went and because her son has it, and she went and got tested, and they were like, yeah, you have it too. And she had was able to start medication for it that had been really effective for her. And when I saw what a difference that was making for her, I realized, like, okay, I was able to call it a long time ago, but why don't you just like suck it up and try and just go see if this is something that would be helpful for you? Because if there are other options out there that might help you manage this, wouldn't that be nice? And
Mhm.
so then I went and I talked to someone and they're like, yeah, it looks like we can prescribe you something. The same way it was for my anxiety, where I was just like, I don't know that I have like clinical anxiety, blah, 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 blah. And like try to talk myself out of it. Same thing with ADHD. Went and talked to someone. They gave me the checklist stuff and like the little assessment things. And they're like, yeah, it looks like we can give you something.
Yeah.
Like, they're like, yeah, it looks like you have ADHD. We can give you something. And it totally, like, I started taking medication. And I know for everyone, like they have different opinions on medications and things. I'm a fan of medications if
Same.
your body can tolerate them and if they work well for you. I'm a fan of medications because I'm like, what a gift that we came up with ways to do this. And
Mhm.
so for me, it's been a huge help. And I was able to start taking like I take Vyvanse or like the lisdexamfetamine, the like generic of it. And it is a bit of a pricier one, but it's been the one that's been the most effective for me. She started me on that one. I tried a couple of the other ones, but they weren't as effective. So I've just stuck with this one and it's been really great. And it makes a huge difference to me when I take it versus when I don't, because when I don't take it, it's just it's kind of the analogy I usually give to other people is it's like the days that I take it, it's like I'm walking on a sidewalk. It's still effort, but everything's a lot easier to do versus the days that I don't take it, I feel like I'm having to walk through mud.
Mhm.
Um, Everything's just a lot more effortful, takes a lot more work to get it all done, and I usually can't go as far. So
Mhm.
yeah. And it's like it's kind of like the when I first started taking the medication and the psychiatrist was following up with me after just to just to see how I was doing because that's what they do when they give you like medication. I was
Mhm.
like, "Oh, it's been amazing. I was able to do so much this weekend." And she was like, "Oh yeah, like what?" And I was like, "I raked the leaves." And it was just like that was pretty much it. I like did chores around the house that were more than just the bare minimum chores. I
Yeah.
raked the leaves. It was now like all the leaves had fully fallen off my tree for that year's season, and there were still the leaves from the year before in my yard. And so So it was a year's worth of leaves that I finally had raked up. And I was just like, oh my gosh, this drug's a miracle because I can't tell you for like the whole how often I would look back there and be like, oh,
Yeah,
stupid leaves.
yeah,
One day I'll get you. But I just couldn't like make myself do it. And then finally I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, I'll totally do the leaves. And it felt like it was nothing. And it was just amazing to me. And it was a lot the same experience that I had when I started taking medication for anxiety, where I was like, wait, this is how everyone else feels all the time? Like
mhm,
your body's not tense and you're not like weighed down with all the worries in the world for most of the day until you finally can get yourself to like put on pants and go to the grocery store. Um, and I felt the same way when I started taking medication, where I was like, what? This is how other people can like spend their day just like doing stuff because they know it needs to happen?
yeah,
What? It like blew my mind. And honestly, anytime I take the medication, I'm just like, oh my word, I am unstoppable. And I'm literally just getting like chores done or
yeah,
work done that I've been needing to get done.
yeah,
I'm
same.
not curing cancer. I'm not like creating the next big hover car. I'm just like,
Yeah,
I mopped and vacuumed and did all my laundry and put it all away in the same day.
yeah,
Plus, I took a shower.
yeah,
And it's just like, whoa, oh my gosh, whoa.
yeah, yeah. I feel the same way. I have medication too. I take Vocalin. Is that how you say it?
I
Vocalin?
don't know.
It's like the generic version of Ritalin.
Okay.
Um, so I just take it whenever I need it because I notice that there are days where it feels like I cannot start. Like it's just I have because every day I have to plan. This is part of the routine that I have now and that I stick to is I plan my to-do list for every day the day before. And then there's some days where I'll just be able to start it and it just naturally like the dopamine hits and as I'm checking things off and I can just keep the momentum. But some days it's like pulling teeth trying to get it and start. So that I just take it on those days and it's helped a ton. And the funny thing is the first time that I took it, um, I called my sister and she was like, "You sound so calm. Like you just sound like," and I'm like, "This is great." It's like not only do I feel calm, I'm like actually doing things that like I know I need to do that have been on my to-do list for like ages. And it's not anything like create this new handout or create like follow, it's literally just like reply to the email that's been sitting
Yes.
in your inbox or like follow up with this person that you had not talked to for 3 weeks that you told you'll follow up with them. Like it's just little things like that. I
Mhm.
think what it's also been really helpful because Phil, my husband, has ADHD. Um, it's definitely not like, I mean, I'm definitely more like hyperactive than he is. He got the diagnosis when he was a kid, so it was just ADD. And it's been really helpful to have this diagnosis too, because anytime that there is tension in our relationship, it's primarily because like I have the mental list of everything that needs to be done and like my hyper awareness of like the bathroom's dirty, it needs to be cleaned, but also like I don't have the 10 minutes to go do it. And he's just like way more chill and laid back of like I don't see it until it's like really bad. So any sort of like tension that we have in our relationship is based on that. So we've been able to just create routines and like systems to help us communicate better and to help us like be on the same page. Which has been just so nice to know that like there's there's a reason and there's like a rationale behind how my brain is operating and like why I'm thinking the thoughts that I have and like why I'm not doing the things or doing the things that I'm doing.
Mhm.
And it's not, I think this is also where, and this is also, I'm gonna just preach about how great Lisa Feldman Barrett is until the day I die because her work literally changed my life. But like probably more so than scripture when I was religious. Just because it gives you context, like actual context around like your experience and why we experience the things that we do. But the just I had spent so much time in like the wellness and like the coaching world of like working with people who are like, if you just dream it, you can do it. And if you believe it, like that kind of like toxic positivity, but also just like some pretty, and especially with like entrepreneurship too, like it can be pretty brutal of like the reason why you're not successful is because like you're not putting in enough reps or anything else. And it's just like you're the one standing in your way, which like in a way, yes, I get that. Like I am standing in my own way, but also how the only way that I would be able to get out of my way is to be able to understand what I'm actually working with, what I'm
Mhm.
actually starting every day with, what are the what are the things that I need to be able to feel like I can show up and do the things that I want to do that day, whether that is my to-do list or whether that's just like taking a chill day and putting some space between my work and myself, or just spending it with people I love, or like just spending more time outside because it's like a beautiful day, and beautiful days that are in the 60s and 70s that don't happen very often in Texas.
Yeah.
So, and I feel like there's definitely more like self-compassion too, instead of like trying to beat myself up to get me to motivate myself, because I would definitely like do that a lot to try to jumpstart my executive functionings of like maybe if I just beat myself up a little bit more, like that will work. Never did. Surprise, surprise. But
Yeah.
it just gives you a little bit more compassion of like, this is just the way it works. And like my my job now is just to get curious about like what things actually help, and help me feel like I can do what I want to do every day.
Absolutely. I like that a lot. I totally agree. It's really nice to have this information because, yeah, especially when you're in like a community or in a job or anything that's kind of like this is it's a one size fits all thing.
Mhm.
That's really not true. Everyone's a lot more nuanced than that.
Yeah,
And, if that works for you, great. Glad that worked for you, but not everyone's brain or body works the same way. And so it's a lot about, and not everyone wants to do that.
yeah, 100%.
And so just kind of figuring out, like, kind of approaching everything more with curiosity and then having accurate data so that you can get a better sense of, how to work better with yourself than
Yeah,
just, shaming yourself or being mean to yourself trying to do that approach because, yeah, that just doesn't work.
yeah.
It makes it a lot easier. And yeah, like, honestly, as soon as I realized that everyone in my family had ADHD, it also made the dysfunction and chaos that
Mhm.
was my family life growing up make so much more sense. And not that it like all of a sudden made it enjoyable. And all of a sudden I was like, oh, so mine was a happy childhood. It was just funny, like a sitcom. And I had the wrong soundtrack on it. It was just more that all of a sudden I was like, oh, okay. And it helped me reframe and update a lot of mental models too that I had otherwise used other lenses to frame at the time where I was like, oh, okay. Well, so, like maybe my dad wasn't a terrible person. He wasn't just like a terrible, inconsiderate, like derelict dad. It was just that he has time blindness and was like super into something he was doing and didn't think to check in on us because he honestly had lost all touch with anything that wasn't right directly in his focus right then that was super interesting and fascinating. You know what I mean? And stuff like that. So it was just like, okay. Like I mean, I still could appreciate, the things that I'm like, yeah, but as an adult, you should still be able to do this. But it just gave me a new context for how some of those things that had been framed before could actually be seen and it made more sense. And it's also made it easier for me to get along with my parents now, in a way that I hadn't been able to for a while, just because I was like, oh, well, because I work with kids with ADHD, all the time. And I'm very familiar with how interactions with neurodivergent people usually go. And so it made a lot of the things that my parents were doing make a lot more sense. And it made it a lot easier for me too to know how to better approach. them with things that I really needed to talk about versus when can I just like let them talk and just occasionally go, uh-huh, 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 when it's not interesting to me, but otherwise just like, let it ride.
Yeah.
Because like right now, like they're just needing to like get it out and they just need to feel connected. And I care about them, but I don't necessarily care about this topic. So I can just like be here present with them,
Yeah.
not actually devote any brain capacity to this because I can't. I just don't have the brain capacity for it.
Yeah, I would second that. I would second I think it helped reframe two things. The first with like my parents and my family dynamic and how my parents showed up and like why my parents raised us the way they did. It also helped reframe like my religious experience too. So like growing up in a super high demand religion, especially because um, I think ADHD thrives, at least like my ADHD thrives on like external validation. And so being a part of a community that that was its sole focus was if you could get externally validated by God or members of the community or the congregation or the leadership, then you were good type of a thing.
100%. And plus, think about like how much executive functioning a religion, especially a high demand religion, does for you. You don't have to make as
Mhm.
many decisions because it's like here are the rules.
Mhm.
Here's also like what day to
Great
day
point.
will look like. So
Yeah.
yeah, it totally makes sense too why it's as appealing as it is to like my family members. Plus, I mean, like I don't want to discount like that they have real spiritual beliefs and things like that.
Yeah, for
Like,
sure, for
but
sure.
like why it can be so much more appealing to someone who doesn't have a lot of ability to access that kind of inner validation or executive functioning on their own.
Yeah.
To get it from like an ultimate source like God, you're just like, whoa, you know what I mean?
I 100% know what you mean. And I think that's like one of the, yeah, I definitely don't think it like discounted like religion is terrible. It was more of like like you said, I think you beautifully said, like it just delegated the executive functioning and made life a little easier. And especially for me too, being a part of that religion and just realizing like how much I was relying on it for that executive functioning and also for like to address my low sense of self-worth and all this other stuff. So once I was able to see that, I think it just helped me part ways with it. I think a lot of people who part ways with the high demand religion have a lot of angst and anxiety. And I feel like you and I have talked a lot about this where it just felt like, hey, if these are the demands that and like the contract of being the terms and conditions of being in a part of this religion, I don't agree with those. And so I'm gonna go do my own thing. So it felt more amicable than something that I have to like uh fight against or be angry about, or I mean it definitely like impacted every single mental model that I've had, and I'm still unpacking some of them.
Yeah.
And but
Same.
I think you know what yeah, it just gives you a lot more grace, I guess, for yourself and compassion for yourself and for the decisions that you made and for I mean, honestly, I'm like grateful for those experiences too, because it helped me like meet people like you and was really formative of like just helping me realize like how to actually be a good person and like to genuinely care for other people and how to show up when people do need help and how to ask for help, even though I am still working on that. So I
Same.
know what it looks like when other people need it, but still working on
Yeah,
it
no,
for
I
me.
totally agree. Like you've said it very well, which is just that like there were a lot of good things that came out of it. A lot of it is just more that I'm really like that you and I have talked as you and I have talked about came to a point where it was like, oh, actually no, that's not really for me. And that's not to say that they're definitely that's why I think it's also good to have a good understanding of how you're approaching something like a religion and what purpose it's serving because it's also easy then to become if that's like the only framework and only worldview you have it can create a lot of problems
Yeah.
and can be misused and can cause a lot of issues And we definitely had like flavors of that in our own lives in different ways too. But like ultimately, it is nice to realize like, hey, when you can get accurate information about what your body needs and is communicating to you and how you feel about yourself and what you want to do and what access you have to it, and what other resources can help you meet and fill those needs, then it makes it a lot easier to keep everything in like a better, I don't know, for me at least, it's kept everything in a lot better of a balance where it's like, oh, okay. So I'm not the worst person in the world. I'm not the smartest person in the world, and both of those things are okay.
Yes.
I'm also super flaky sometimes, but I'm also very creative and I'm also too much, but I'm also like enough. And like just kind of getting better. It just, yeah, it's definitely helped me update my mental models for sure. Just because I've had more information and then I can have more accurate interpretations of how I'm going through life and what I can do to help myself out.
Yeah, I agree. Well,
Anyway.
I think that's a beautiful note to end on, but probably we'll be talking about ADHD a lot more.
Oh, I
So,
mean, I don't see how we could not. It's pretty pervasive when it's like this is we're talking about the actual structure of our brains and how our brains actually operate. Pretty
yeah.
sure it's gonna come up again.
Yeah. If you haven't already seen it in all the past episodes of like how we've
If you have, yeah, like let's see how good of detective everyone else is. Maybe
surprise.
if you didn't notice the symptoms, maybe psychiatry is not the field for you.
I know, it's
Just
so
kidding.
true.
Or you can also just be like, oh, whoops, I have a blind spot there, but I still am interested in psychiatry. I just need to work a little bit harder
There
here.
you go. See, meet yourself with that compassion and curiosity, friends.
All right, Chelsea, always a pleasure.
You too. We'll see you next time.
Bye.